That movie sucked.
I kind of liked it.
Movie Night Crew Network.
Hello and welcome to Content and Capable, where I try to figure out what it really means to adult. Today I spoke to Scotty McDonald all about his life telling stories in and around Brisbane and the importance that they've had on his life as he's become an adult. Welcome to Content and Capable, Scotty. It's really lovely to have you.
It's great to be here. And can I say, stop not to ruin the magic of podcasting, but this is a very professional, this is the most professional podcast that I've been on. So
I do have to give a big shout out to my friend Christina, who helped me with all the documents that you've seen on your end that I've sent to you and little bits and pieces. If it's too hard to jump on a podcast, people won't want to jump on again, and we want as many people to get into podcasting as possible.
Very true. Agree with you 100%. So thank you for the work you're doing to grow podcasting.
Scotty, normally when I have people on the podcast, at least my regular listeners kind of know who they are. And maybe, I've got an explanation, for last week I had my brother on because he was my brother and I've been threatening for him to be on the podcast for a while. But who are you? Like, if you had to explain who you are to someone, how would you explain that?
That's, you know what, I used to have a really succinct answer for this, but I think the last couple of years my life has changed at such a rapid pace that I probably don't have the succinct answer. But in a nutshell, what I want to be known for is a storyteller who tells stories that are important and makes people feel things, whether that's passionate, excited, to reconsider their position on something. But at a really practical level, I am a father of one, a husband of one also. I'm a social media producer for 10 News in Queensland and more or less across the country. I work with the wider team, which I haven't done since July because I've been on paternity leave. 10 have an amazing paternity leave thing that we all get a really amazing amount of paternity leave. But that's what I do when I'm...
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's actually incredible. So that's what I do when I'm not on paternity leave. But I've done, like, the last 12 years, I've dabbled in a heap of stuff. I've been on the radio, produced a couple of radio shows, and I've been a youth worker in the midst of that. It's been a really interesting 15 years since I graduated high school.
Yeah, I was doing a quick peruse while we were messaging, I think of your website and bits and pieces, and I was like, wow, you've just done so much, other awesome stuff as well, I remember as a kid listening to you on the radio, as we mentioned in our messages, but you've done all this other awesome work, which I just, I can't believe you've managed to fit that all in the last 12 years.
Yeah, it's very much a top level. I've done a lot of things without kind of going too deep on any of them, but it's been, it's I've had some really cool opportunities, and that's what it comes down to at the end of the day is I've just been in the right place at the right time and had access to cool opportunity.
Yeah. And so, you mentioned you're a social media manager for 10 News, which, for anyone who doesn't live in Australia is one of the three major networks here here. How did you get into that position? What kind of led up into getting to that position?
So I have been, I think you're going to relate to what I say next. I've been obsessed with news for as long as I can remember. There's just something about the nature of news, particularly breaking news, that I just find really addictive. But from when I was about 7, I wanted to work in radio. And so that's kind of where I ended up going, still with this bent of news in the back of my mind. And I think entertainment radio, which is where I ended up, doesn't necessarily put you in the greatest position to hone that newscraft. And I managed to be on air during the Brisbane floods in 2011, and that just was heartbreaking, but such a incredibly eye-opening experience broadcasting through something like that. And that kind of then switched it of this is what I want to do. This is the kind of this is the kind of media I want to do. And so then I didn't do that. And over the next couple of years, that's when I was a youth worker. And then following that, I went to work at what is now B105, but what was at the time Hit 105, was very close with their news department, was very obsessive about talking to their news department about news, but ended up as their social media dude. And then when the job came up at 10, I was like, this is it. Like, I have to get this job. I have to work in a newsroom. I have to transfer my current skill set to their newsroom because I just need to do this. I need to work in news. And one of the best lessons I learnt from applying for that job was I did everything right that you should do when applying for a job. Like, I spent ages working through that job application, and I think it paid off.
Wow. And I suppose you would have done like all the research and as well, like before you even got to an interview stage.
100%
as well.
100%. And that was not long after 10 had been acquired by CBS. So so they're owned by a big international entertainment company after a really rocky couple of years that got them there. And so I knew inside out what they were doing. I was listening to a podcast with the news director, just anything I could find out so that when I walked in there, I was like, I know exactly who you are and I know exactly where I fit into this.
Yeah. That sounds like everything right. Like I'm currently applying for a couple of jobs at the moment, trying to shift further closer towards a paying journalism gig because that's the aim for me. And I turned around and I realized that you've got to do those things because people really, really appreciate it. And sometimes I do it automatically. Like there are points where I've, just obsessively, compulsively been researching something. And then, other points where I've got turned around, walked away from a job interview and gone, I could have done a lot more research there.
One of the key things that I've learned, if there's one lesson that I've really learned in the last 15 years, it's that they can teach you how to be a journalist. They can teach you how to chase a story. They can teach you how to write a story. But what they can't teach you is passion. And so if you have that, if you walk in there and they're like, you know what, this person is the worst journalist we've ever met, but man, he's passionate about it, you're not necessarily guaranteed the job, but you're on a far better front foot than someone who might tick all the boxes, but is just so cynical and thinks that they deserve to be in the room.
Yeah, no, definitely. You mentioned the 2011 floods, and now that I reflect on it, the 2011 floods were quite a big thing. I think it was just to the point where I was conscious enough to be aware of what was happening. Not that I was a baby or anything, but it's kind of like that 11, 12 years old where you go, oh, yes, this is something that is important and something that I should remember. And that is probably, where I, realized my addiction for news as well. That's, amazing.
It was, it's actually really funny. I was talking, another friend of mine and I are both quite media and news obsessed. And we were having this conversation really recently about how kind of going through the 2011 floods, you think this will be the biggest news event we ever cover. And if Brisbane floods again, it'll be the biggest news event we ever cover. But then the last 2 years has just really added a whole new layer on that. Like, it's like, well, what? Because I think the floods were huge and they were impacting and people died and people lost their homes and it was really horrific. But kind of within the months that followed, we managed to get over it in inverted commas. Like, life managed to restore to normality. Whereas the last 2 years has just never gotten anywhere near.
It's crazy. And in the context of Brisbane, I was in a lecture when Brisbane got announced as the 2032 Olympics host, and I was really excited about it because I know that is something that's going to be huge and amazing and great for everything here in Brisbane. But my professor turned around and said, look at the international headlines. And it's interesting because people still view Brisbane as like this country town, which, admittedly, there are aspects of Brisbane that are like a country town, but then there are other aspects of Brisbane you turn around and you go, yeah, that's a city.
But my greatest issue with Brisbane is that like every restaurant says kitchen closes late, and by late they mean 7:30. It's like, mate, I haven't even started getting hungry at 7:30. Like this forever for me is the fact that Brisbane struggles so hard to sustain any kind of actual nightlife that isn't going to a nightclub.
Yeah.
This, I'll tell you what, this is my thing. If something's going to change by 2032, it'd want to be that. Where do you want to be in 2032? Obviously, as soon as that was announced. So I'll tell you where I was when that was announced. I was in hospital, not me personally. It was about a week after my daughter was born. And we were at the Marta Mothers, just up the road from where everyone was celebrating. And I thought, geez, we're not going to forget this anytime soon. But obviously you were at uni when that was announced. As a journalism student, where do you want to be during 2032?
I'd love to be right where it's happening. Where I'd love to be is right in the thick of it, whether that is, covering a sport or, being, just roaming and doing interviews, around, in and around, writing stories for Brisbane by someone from Brisbane on a world event that is happening in Brisbane. This is the biggest thing that's happened since Expo 88 to Brisbane. And the amount, we want as much coverage as we can so that, I would love to see, stories about, local businesses in South Bank that have, really benefited from, sport and more tourism and growth in the area. And, stories about, new areas of Brisbane being developed. I come from Moreton Bay, and Moreton Bay's barely ever in the news except for yesterday when the NRL announced the new team, which happens to be from Redcliffe.
Did you see the Wire? Did you see any of the Wire reporting that was like the team, which is currently in Moreton Bay, Brisbane? Oh
yeah. Look, I have a love-hate relationship with the Wire, unfortunately. Because I use some of their stories for the show that I run on 4ZZZ, I kind of have to use them, and then they write something like that, and it's like, you get your facts straight, please. But yes, no, aspects like Moreton Bay, I've been discussing with family and friends and other journalists about, what will the Olympics bring to, a Moreton Bay and the Sunshine Coast and the north of Brisbane, which chronically is terrible for a lot of things. I currently live on the north side of Brisbane. I'm a north sider through and through. And I hate the public transport. I hate the fact that, there is almost nothing here, and you go and everything's on the south side. And then, what will the Olympics do to change that? And, my parents were in Sydney for Sydney 2000 and working there. And they say, the changes that we saw in Sydney are so amazing. And, we're going to see that in Brisbane, and we're really excited for it.
So what's the actual goal? Like, obviously that's 2032, but who do you want to work for?
I don't know. And this is like a weird aside. There are, to be honest, I'm still trying to decide what medium I want to be working in. I've been working in radio for the past 2 years, and I've been loving it. But at the same time, there's like a desire to then also, work in TV news and then, written news as well. And really properly explore and figure out, whether, I definitely have a passion for all three. I love all aspects of the news, but which one I would love the most.
So who's on a world scale, I don't care if they're local or international, but on a world scale, who is reporting the news the best in 2021, in your opinion?
Oh, that's a hard one. I think, unfortunately, it's a combination. I think the written stories award for me would go to the ABC. The ABC does some excellent written reporting. I think the video stories would go. I wouldn't be sure. It's a toss up between Channel 9 and Channel 10 for me.
You're only saying that because I work at 10.
I did some work experience at Win News on the Sunshine Coast many years ago.
Yeah.
And they're a really lovely team there.
You're
They
probably
make some
working
awesome
with
stories.
people who are now in my newsroom.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's kind of scary. And then for like radio and things, it really depends on what news you want to focus on. Like, you know, for me, news on a national scale, I think the ABC does some excellent reporting. But then on like a local scale, that, you know, things like 4ZZZ do a really, really great job of making sure that the small stories that wouldn't be picked up by a huge news organization, because they've got to cover both the national and the local stories, are covered so much better and with so much more depth and breadth on someone that is dedicated to that.
Totally.
And, you know, each you know thing in Brisbane has its place, and which is amazing.
Yeah, totally. And that's, I think, the beauty of community radio. That I think it's why we need a community media sector.
Oh yeah, 100%. I've just been, you know, reading up on community media for a quiz that I had to do, and as much as the academics argue about it, they all like turn around and go, yeah, it's important, which is nice. It's nice to see that, you know, the place in which I work at the moment is considered important.
Very true.
I only really recently, you know, found out about you when I discovered you on TikTok. What inspired you to make all these like Brisbane, you know, cool Brisbane stories TikToks?
This is a paternity leave answer again. So I was on, I got this great block of paternity leave, and I thought I really want to create something in this time. I want to achieve something in this time. I want to do something in this time. And I love telling the stories of Brisbane. I love Brisbane. And I was just like, I'll just chuck one up there and see what happens. And it was about, there's a lot of former bomb shelters that are just used as street furniture now around Brisbane. And so I just did a thing about that, and it blew up. And I was like, okay, I'll see if I can ride this wave. And so at the time, I think I had 300 followers, and I was like, let's go on a journey to 1,000. And that happened really fast, like within days. And then I thought, let's go on a journey to 10,000. And so that's just happened. So that took a month. And so I think there were kind of two things going on there. There was like, I've always wanted to develop some persona as the voice of Brisbane, like the guy that covers Brisbane content was number one. And then number two, I was like, man, I'm a social media producer, but we're so in news strategy now, as we should be at work, that I kind of don't give myself the opportunities to do things and to explore platforms really well anymore. And so I just wanted to see what it took to grow a profile on TikTok and to quote unquote viral videos on TikTok, which I wouldn't class any of them necessarily as being viral. I think viral's a million views plus, but just learning that and aiming for that niche is really big. It's definitely something interesting. I've seen a lot of companies explore, you know, trying to have growth on TikTok. There's a divide at my place at the moment. I'm living with my brother, and he's an Instagram Reels person, and I'm a TikTok person. And you know, it's very interesting to see, you know, how they both work slightly differently as well. I'm okay with making big calls. I'm always scared about how wrong they're going to be, and when they're on public record like this, that it's going to come back. Yeah, I think Instagram has peaked, and I think we're on Instagram's decline. I don't see that app coming back. I'm all but done with Instagram. Again, get ready for me to, in a year's time, take that back and be like, how great's Instagram, everyone? But I'm all but done with it for two reasons. The first one being, Facebook have tried to shove so many ideas into that app. Every time somebody launches a new thing, Facebook seem to go, let's copy that and just put it in Instagram. Which, geez, I hope I don't ever apply for a job at Facebook. And number two reason is that, and this is the main reason, this is the main problem I have with Instagram. Everyone leaning close now, because this is a big problem I have. They won't let me do reels longer than 30 seconds.
I'm so mad about that.
I'm on a older account. Like, I signed up to Instagram in the early days, and so it takes them forever to roll things out to me, and I haven't got 1 minute reels, and as a result, I'm not uploading content there. And I'm not getting those sweet, sweet likes that wake me up in the morning.
Yeah, no, I don't think I can upload. I've got a newer account, I think, in the grand scheme of things. But I can't upload more than 30 seconds, I think.
Yeah.
Actually, I created a brand new account once. I was like, I'm going to separate my professional and my personal life. You know,
how'd it go?
I don't think everyone needs to see, you know, my family every 5 seconds. But yes, it's, you know, I definitely think that Instagram is on the decline. It's, I think people made comments about this when they started incorporating, you know, things like stories and bits and pieces, which, you know, worked mildly successfully. And then, you know, IGTV came, and then the whole shopping function. And then as soon as we got to the, you know, the reels and stuff, I was like, yeah, this is, they're really running out. This is, you know.
One of the really interesting things that I learnt recently, I was in a seminar with someone from TikTok, and they were talking about, so Instagram is a true social media app. It's designed for you to post things and for people to comment and share with you and to be social with you. TikTok regard themselves as an entertainment app. So TikTok see their competitors as YouTube, Fortnite, Netflix, things that you go to be entertained by. So they quite publicly, and who knows what it's like internally, but quite publicly, they say that Facebook, Instagram, Twitter aren't competitors of theirs, or if they are, they're competitors in kind of a lesser block. Whereas they have a longer on-platform time. Please, nobody research this, because I'm basically just trying to remember what I heard about a year ago. But they have a longer on-platform time for teenagers in Australia than Netflix does. So that, to them, that's what they care about. And when you look at how you use TikTok, and when you look at how content gets served to you on TikTok, it's less about people you know and seeing what's happening in their life, and more about things that you'll find entertaining. And that's the world that they exist in.
Oh yeah, definitely. And like there's so many different like niches on TikTok as well. It's almost like Netflix, but less you have to make a decision, and more the decisions made for you based on the decisions you've made. Oh, please. In terms of like your, you know, why Brisbane? Why not, you know, obviously you and I have both grown up here in Brisbane, but like, you know, have you ever had the desire, you know, maybe I should go move to Sydney or Melbourne, or even like overseas?
No. So overseas, yes. I don't think there's really anywhere else in Australia that I would live. But New York has definitely always been, that's something that my wife and I have talked a little bit about, being something that we do eventually.
Yeah.
But yeah, Brisbane, I don't know. I just really like Brisbane. I really enjoy it as a city. Other than the inability to get things late at night, I just think it's such a beautiful part of the world. And it is really filled with such interesting people and interesting stories, and people who really bat above their average. And it's the lifestyle. Like, you just can't fault it. I just can't think that there would be many places with the lifestyle that we have in Brisbane in terms of the weather and what's on our doorstep and all of that, for sure.
Oh yeah, like, you know, in the second week of the school holidays, my family went, you know, we're going to go camping, and we literally drove for 30 minutes and then camped and you know, had 3 days of bliss, 30 minutes away from home, and then, you know, and then we went up, you know, drove up an hour and a half up to Coolum and spent the weekend there as well. And it's like, you know, you don't get to do that in many other places, which I find, you know, amazing. And I think that is a testament to how amazing where we live is.
Totally.
Yeah. In terms of like working in the news, have you like ever had any formal training with like news, or did you, you know, just go into it going, I've got an eye for this?
I'm as fresh can be. So I have no tertiary education. So I walked out of high school. I was already working. So when I was 17, I was working at B105, which was really cool. And so then I was going to go and study journalism, but actually nursing and journalism, they were the two things that I was tossing up between. But then when I started working at 105, that was like, uni deferred for a year, and then I just never did it. I just kind of moved my way through radio and learned some things and made a lot of mistakes there. And yeah, then it just kind of became a succession of things. And so I hope now my resume probably speaks enough, but definitely like up until really my late 20s, I knew that there was a deficit of education that meant that I had to really prove that I was the right person for the job. But I think one of the biggest one of the biggest things with media is that if you can show that you can do the work and you can prove that you're the right person for the job, that will often be taken more seriously than what's written on your resume.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think we're shifting, like even at university, they're kind of shifting away from this formal education about, you know, particular things. You know, I don't do a Bachelor of Journalism. I do a Bachelor of Communications, majoring in journalism. And so, you know, that shift away from, you know, tertiary education is now not a way to get into, it is still a way to get into, you know, those industries, but is another way to get into more critical thinking. And I really enjoyed the critical thinking aspect of being at university and having to, you know, really critically analyze what my peers and what, you know, my seniors are doing, and then adjust and, you know, make things work out of it. And, you know, a couple of other, you know, weird anecdotes. You know, the journalism department is never the most well-funded part. And so it's great watching, you know, my lecturers and unit coordinators be really, like, resourceful with what they've got in front of them, which is, you know, amazing to see as well.
And I think as well as that, it introduces you to people and gives you opportunities that you wouldn't be able to do. As well, it shows employers that you can commit to something, you can get something. I remember the first story I had to write for our website, I was, what the heck have I gotten myself in? Like the last thing I wrote that was long form and graded was for an English class 10 years ago. What the heck have I gotten myself into? And then you're just like madly searching for things. And then I found the pyramid that tells you in what order to order things. I was like, great, this is all I need. Printed that out, stuck it on my desk, had no idea what I was doing. Had a sub editor that was like, okay, good try, mate. We'll give you another story to write tomorrow. But that was probably the first day in 10 years after school where I was like, man, I wish I went to uni.
Yeah, I definitely think that, like, the writing aspect, my brother... So I've got two younger brothers who are a year younger than me. So they finished school at the end of last year. Twins, yeah. Redhead twins. It's a handful. Like, it's like
identical. Are they identical?
They're identical twins.
Okay, I've got questions. Oh,
okay, fire away.
Do you feel like they have a secret friendship that you're not allowed anywhere near? Like, do they gang up on you and stuff?
It is my pet peeve, their secret friendship, because I'm 17 months older than them, and so we're, you know, us three are quite close. I'm the oldest of 10 children, so you got little cliques of, you know, siblings, and so, you know, us older three, we've experienced a lot together, but yet they seem to talk a lot more than I do with them, and I am always consistently frustrated that, you know, yes, you know, they're twins, obviously they're a lot closer, but why can't I be involved with this as well?
Yeah.
But when they graduated, they decided to do two completely different things. And, you know, dealing with my brothers as, like, split personalities, I've got, like, a really quiet, reserved one twin, and the other twin is very loud and will voice his opinions straight away, and doesn't care what other people think. And it's very, like, you've got to be very different in your approach if you want to, like, ask a favor or something, because, you know, they react very differently. But the loud one went to Alice Springs. He got a surveying job over in Alice Springs, and he moved there. And it, you know, it was, you know, really interesting to see he left school and went straight into that. And then now his boss asked him to write like a reflection on the last year of his work in, you know, surveying, and, you know, what he plans for the future. And he spent 2 months writing 800, or not even 800 words. I think it was like 500 words. And he struggled through every second of it. And, like, I understand, you know, none of us are particularly good at English. You know, I struggle to write academic essays still. But what I found was amazing was that he'd, like, completely lost that skill to be able to just push through and keep going. Whereas my brother and I, who went straight into university out of school, we still got that little bit of a skill, you know, just to push through and then, you know, come back and fix it up later.
Yeah, that's cool. But I even noticed my spelling and grammar are shocking. Spelling's probably fine, but grammar is just for everything I write, I use Pro Writing Aid or Grammarly, and just let them pick up the issues and teach me things I didn't previously know.
Oh yeah, 100%. I would not live without spell check, especially because I'm still not a very good typist. I'm a lot better than I used to be. But, I was writing a couple of paragraphs for an article that I've got due on Monday. And, there was like full phrases that was just had the red squiggly line underneath it because every word was spelt wrong. Which I think is a really dangerous assumption to have with people who work in the media, because people who work in the media don't have perfect handwriting, perfect grammar and spelling, and mastery over the English language. Which
no, definitely not.
Yeah,
they're on deadlines, and I see stuff written on news websites all the time, and people crack up about they wrote this wrong, or the way they described this isn't entirely accurate, and I'm like, man, there are journalists that having to pump out 8 stories today because their newsroom has shafted the other 40 journalists that work there, and you're complaining about the fact that you have to pay $3.25 a month to read that story. Like, what do you want? Like, free quality news? Who's going to pay for it?
Yeah, it's definitely something, and this is something that, has been echoed to me. I've worked in, in and around the music industry before, and I've worked in other creative industries. And the main complaint is people expect us to work for free, but then we also need to pay the bills. How is this supposed to happen at the same time?
Yeah, I think that's the beauty of the creator economy. I think what we're seeing now is really, really exciting in terms of people being able to make money from what they create, as opposed to just expecting.
Oh yeah, 100%. I don't know whether you saw the Twitch leak a couple of weeks ago. This is going to really date this episode. But the top, few hundred creators on that website, their earnings were leaked, and the top were earning like 13 million. And admittedly, that 13 million went to a huge creative team. But, it goes to show that there are still places where that is supported, which is amazing.
How often are you releasing episodes?
Every week.
So how many are you sitting on? Like, how far in advance are you sitting?
So I burned through my backlog a couple of weeks ago. I had a bit of a mental health not episode, but just not good. So I burned through, I think I had a backlog of about 5 or 6 episodes. And over the next 2 weeks, I'm building up my backlog. So this one will come out on Monday afternoon. And then
Exciting.
Yeah.
It's Thursday right now, by the way, everyone. It's Thursday. It's mid-morning. It's dreary and rainy. If it's now a sunny Monday, just so you know, it's dreary and rainy.
Yeah. But yeah, over the next few weeks, the aim is to build up that backlog again, so then I can, either, continue episodes. Hopefully it's right up to Christmas, and then I'll take a month or 2 off, and then start the next year worth of content over again.
Who are you trying to get? Who else is on Sam's hit list?
My hit list. The hit list is long and varied. Aussie streaming, which is this very interesting dynamic in the whole gaming sector. If you stream games, as an Australian, because of our internet and how far away we are from the rest of the world, oftentimes it's very different and a little bit isolated. I have been trying to contact an author about book writing.
I just finished writing a book.
Oh yeah,
so
how did that go?
To that episode, terrible, horrid. I learned. So the whole. Sorry, just a tangent. On
No. Tangents are awesome.
What the author won't tangent. The whole I'm obsessed with this world of self-publishing. It's so interesting, and there's there are more millionaires self-publishing than published authors who are millionaires, because it's just such an interesting world. Anyway, Everyone's always wanted to write a book. I started writing a book, and I have come to learn over the last 3 years I did everything wrong in that process of writing a book. And so it's taken me 3 years to write a 36,000 word novella. But it's almost done. We'll be published within weeks.
Yeah.
But now I'm on to the second one, and I'm doing everything right. And I'm hoping that 3 years will actually be more like 4 weeks for the second one. But incredibly interesting. And my wife, so I sent it to a development editor to tell me that the story was okay.
Yeah.
And then now my wife is line editing it, and she's like, "Why do you not use full stops?" I'm like, "Okay." So we've got some real grammar issues.
Yep. I'm guilty of not using full stops as well.
Yeah. Is one of your brothers the evil twin?
Oh yeah. I won't say which because he'll get very offended, but he knows in my eyes he's the evil twin. It was interesting. I had an ethical issue yesterday in regards to a job I was applying for, and I wanted to discuss it with someone, and both my parents were asleep. Like it was the middle of the day. I'm like, why are both my parents asleep? I should be asleep. And so I called him, and I'm like, why am I asking you for ethical advice? You know, why would I trust you with an ethical issue? And then young people who are in like traditionally old jobs, like a lot of this, I want to find find people's passions and then talk about their passions in relation to their adulting, which is, what we've been doing for the last little while. But it's amazing. The stories I've heard and the, awesome, things that people have told me. I definitely, the adult doll collecting episode with Carrie was one of my favorites to record. She was just, she's, a mother and, a wife, and has had this storied life. And then still has this, what, people would consider childish, hobby. And, it's fascinating to me.
I think there's a real need for adults to remember the things they were passionate about, particularly as a teenager, because we're so passionate in our teenage years about things, and then life gets in the way. And so that we end up in our 30s, 40s, 50s being like, I don't even know who I am or what I stand for or what I want to do. And it's because we were like, I need to get a job. I need to get married. I need to get a house. I need to have kids. I need to make sure that my life is still funded, that we just totally let the dreams go by.
Yeah.
And now more than ever, like we're now in the moment in history where you can turn your passions into something more than just a side thing. But
which is awesome.
It's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is awesome, but it's hard. Well, and you know what? It's not even hard. It's risky and it's scary.
Oh, yeah.
But it can be done.
Oh, yeah. And, even then, you don't have to, you might have a passion and, you might not want to get, fully paid for it or that to be your career. But, learning to have, a work-life balance that allows for, your hobbies and your, to be able to, set time every week to, work on something. I play trombone. That's my hobby. That's what I really, really love. As well as, my university life, making sure I'm being paid, the work I do at community radio, which I'm not paid for. And, then the other bits and pieces that I do on the side as well as, family and friends and bits and pieces.
So what's the highlight? What do you get the most joy out of in your week?
It depends. We had a performance the other week and I was like, that was the highlight of my week. Or I don't know whether you remember, there was a couple months ago, there was a Land Forces Expo and there was protests outside the entertainment centre. I had just taken over running Tuesday Brisbane Line, which is the radio show I host. And so we were like, let's go and do this. And then at 12, we did an hour-long special on the protests and the expo. I got out, stepped out of the studio at 1:30. The show finished at 1 o'clock. And we were like, this is amazing. Can we do this every week? And obviously, something on that scale doesn't happen every week. But, we turned around and we're like, that was awesome. That was the highlight. And, and it differs from time to time, There are points where making this podcast is a real chore and I've got to really power through, especially the editing. I really don't like the editing. But then there are, days where that, is amazing. And I listen back to the conversations I've had with people and friends and go, it's awesome. What about you? What would be the highlight of your week?
Right now, it's going and getting a coffee every morning because that is the only differentiating thing that I do. No, I don't know. It's increasingly, Yeah, I actually don't know. I shouldn't have asked a question that I didn't have an answer for myself. But I think those days, like those big news days at work, are fantastic. When you talk about the Land Forces Expo, I think back to that day that most of Queensland lost power when there was a explosion at a power plant, and being part of that story and being part of that story developing was cool, and how we lined that up to get that to broadcast, like to get that on air, and how we kept updating things throughout the day was like that's one of those moments where it's exactly where I want to be. Like telling the news is exactly where I want to be. But then, obviously the experience of childbirth was an incredible experience from this year as well, that it's like, wow, I'd relive that as well because I didn't have to do it. But then sometimes it's writing. Yeah, I'm similar with you. Like, it just depends on what's going on, and then, but so to be honest, it's probably hanging out with people. Whether it's having deep philosophical conversations with my wife, or going for late night walks with one of my friends from radio, or catching up with a beer with a couple of my long term mates who are really high level thinkers. Like, I just like hearing where people are at.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating. I love just talking to people. And I think that's half the reason why I started this podcast, because I have these awesome conversations with people, and it's like, well, other people need to hear this as well. Yeah, it's amazing. I love working creatively as well. I think working creatively has become something that a lot of the time, I've spoken to people about this before. A lot of the time, parents and family members go, "Oh, when are you going to get a real job?" And it's like, well, no, this can be the real job, and we're allowed to have this as a real job. Australia, always the talk is we don't have enough journalists, but like journalism is dying, and we don't need social media content creators, but there is new platforms of social media every day, and I think that there's this weird dichotomy, and there's this assumption that creative is dying, but the creative isn't. It's just transitioning to be much more money focused.
Yeah, creative fields are going to be a really important thing in the next decade, and I think there are gatekeepers that are holding on that are going to lose their power in the next couple of years, and I think the power that that's going to have is amazing. I think the work that companies like Substack are doing to give people who have an audience the ability to independently monetize their content through newsletter and podcasts, that sort of thing, is where I think we're moving. I think we've seen it in self-publishing. I think we've seen music. I think we're now starting to see it in analysis and news. I think it's a really exciting time to be creating, but I think you have to be entrepreneurial in your creating. I don't think I think less and less there's going to be opportunities to companies to employ you to create for them, because they're also getting on this bandwagon, and they realize that they're competing with people who are doing independently.
Oh yeah, 100%. I think that, I was looking, my TikTok is covered with US people, which kind of makes me sad, because there are plenty of Australian creators that, should be there. But they were talking about the debt crisis there, and talking about late stage capitalism. And I think that what we're going to transition to is small scale things, and, small scale and nimble things that can adjust super quickly to a new situation and a new environment, which, I think is very important.
And this is one of the reasons I love self-publishing, and traditionally published authors really don't often like self-publishing. Just as a side note, one of the things I love about self-publishing is that trends move really quickly, and so whenever something blows up, there'll be a whole genre that comes out of it. So Twilight, vampire love stories again became popular. They'd been popular decades before, but they again became popular. Traditional publishing houses need to find authors who'll write them for them, get the author to write them for it, get it edited, and then find a slot in the next 3 years to publish the book. Self-publishing, you write, get it edited, all within months.
Yeah.
And you're ahead of that curve. And I think that's how quickly things are starting to move now. And I think if you're not able to move with that agility, then you're going to end up getting lost.
Yeah,
I'm really interested. Foxtel released today, again, this was on Thursday. Foxtel have just released their new streaming services, which is just for, and Foxtel really interests me. They seem like a company that is lost in the past, but then they do just keep coming out with stuff that's pulling them through. And I'm intrigued to see if people will pay $8 a month to have access to non-stop news streaming service. Like, these are the things that I just think are so interesting in the coming years.
Yeah, I definitely remember. Like, I remember when Foxtel was relatively new, and was kind of a disruptor in the TV space, and it kind of died, and we forgot about it. And then I've been doing quite heavy analysis on streaming video on demand services, and Foxtel comes back up again, and it's like, well, is Foxtel valid anymore? Does anyone still watch Foxtel? It turns out people do. And, we've just, kind of keep forgetting about it.
And anyone that watches sport is signed up to KO. And, and KO is a beautiful app. Like, I'm really not a sports guy, but I think KO is one of the nicest streaming service apps.
Yeah, it's definitely, I think, I don't know, here in Australia, it's weird because we don't have these huge mega institutions like, their ABC and their, CNBC and Fox News and bits and pieces, these mega institutions. We've got, 3 fairly nimble, commercial news outlets, as well as our newspapers and bits and pieces, which have a fun past and history. And then we've got, all these small independent publications. Like, I don't know whether you remember when Murdoch cancelled all the regional newspapers here in Southeast Queensland, basically. And that was a big blow, but out of that came all these other small independent community newspapers. For example, in Moreton Bay, we've got this newspaper called the Moreton Daily, which has now just expanded to service the whole of the Moreton Bay region. It was just Redcliffe and North Lakes. And they've got naming rights for the stadium where the new NRL team's going to play. And it's, they're very nimble and very positive focus, which means that they are, super critical of things, and which might be, who knows, it might be a bit of a downfall for them. But other than that, they're so good at understanding what people want and where people want it, and showcasing what Moreton Bay has to offer, rather than a whole bunch of political garbage, which was what the local newspaper was beforehand.
It's an exciting time.
I'm looking forward to it. Where do you intend on being at the 2032?
I do not know. It's something I think about and something I am excited for. I'd love to work for the 2032 Olympics. I'd love to be part of the team that put together in some way. I think that would just be a really exciting, memorable, amazing thing to be part of, is being part of that story, and yeah. I
definitely think it's going to be one of the, obviously we've got Paris in 2024 and Los Angeles in 2028, but I definitely think this is going to be the first Olympics that is truly post-pandemic. We won't, we'll be well clear of everything, and it'll be in the distant, near future.
It'll be, yes, it won't have echoes of the pandemic at all.
Which I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to being able to have an Olympics that is in our time zone. That's what I loved about Tokyo. It's only an hour off.
That's so true.
I've seen a lot of memes about staying up till 5 a.m. to watch the F1. A lot of people are apparently into the F1 at the moment. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, this is just normal life for Australians. If we want to watch an international event live, we've got to be up at a ridiculous hour.
I can't remember what they did with Sydney, but so many decisions are made. The broadcast time for NBC and whoever takes it UK. And so it'll be very interesting to see where they run certain gold medal events and that sort of thing. I'm really interested to see who owns the broadcasting rights for the 2032 Olympics.
Yeah, that'll be
interesting. I think the way we consume television will be very different by then. I'd be interested to see if someone like Netflix tries to jump in and get some kind of global broadcast deal. I think it'll be a very interesting time.
Channel 7 had the broadcasting rights for this one, and they don't have their own dedicated streaming service. Be interested to see if 9 takes a jump and uses Stan as a factor, and and uses that existing infrastructure to be able to really, really like broadcast it as well. Obviously, you know, other streaming services, it would be very interesting to see who would jump on. But often it's like country-based as well, which I think keeps the Netflixes at bay from time to time.
Yeah, but the question is, will it? Like,
Yeah.
like particularly like streaming services internationaling really quickly now.
Yeah.
And so you've got like a company like Amazon could take the hit and put it on Prime.
Yeah.
Netflix could definitely take the hit. You know, does Viacom CBS go in with Paramount Plus and say,
Yeah.
we want
And
an
then 10
international
takes
deal?
it for, you know, for the Australia, and Viacom takes it for the US. And then, you know, they've got two huge Western markets, which I think is, I don't know.
And
it's
they've got markets in the UK. That's completely my opinion, and
Yeah.
that is definitely not me speaking on behalf of the company. Like
Yeah.
that's
No,
entirely
it's just all speculation here. And I don't know, the different permutations of who owns broadcasting rights, I think is very fascinating, because you have to make a bid. And, you know, the way that the bids are structured and what is emphasized is intriguing to me.
Yeah. Even the AFL Grand Final, where Seven couldn't stream it, so you could watch it
Yeah.
on, say, Apple TV, but not your phone. All of that stuff is, yes, an interesting world that I'm glad that I'm not part of. That I think
yes.
like negotiating those sports rights would be so difficult.
Oh, and because sport has such high value here in Australia, you know, just so much money on the line as well. I could never imagine, you know, discussing that amount of money. Like a few $1,000s is scary enough for me, unfortunately. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Scotty. I've really appreciated it.
No, it was great to chat, and it's cool hearing where you're at and what. Yeah, I'm excited to see where you.
Yeah. Is there any media that you've been consuming that you want to share?
Like what I think everybody should be watching right now.
Yeah, pretty much watching, listening, reading, whatever.
I've consumed a lot. I've consumed a lot in the last couple of months, as you. Okay, let's go through a few things that are at top of mind right now. If you haven't watched the morning show on Apple TV, you should be catching up with that right now. Yeah. Only Murders in the Building, which is on Disney, is our current big addiction. And also, while you're there, Murders, One of Us is Lying has just started on Stan 100%.
Oh, wow. Okay.
When it comes to reading, if you're a Brisbane person, if you are Brisbane and you love Brisbane, particularly if you went to high school in Brisbane, Rhiannon Wild has just released her book, Henry Hamlet's Heart. Just came out through UQ Press, and it is just like, it is so disgustingly Brisbane. I feel like it was written about my childhood.
Oh no.
So go and read it. It's 100% like top marks for it. I think you'll like it. I'm the same as you. I really enjoyed. I don't know. I feel like so many people are so glad I'm not in high school anymore. I really enjoyed my high school days.
Yeah, there were ups and downs. I think that, you know, I did the musicals when I was in high school as well, playing trombone, and, you know, those 3 or 4 months that, you know, for every second year for the last 4 years of my time in school were just amazing senses of community, and, you know, it was just awesome. And where can people find you on social media?
TikTok obviously is the main one. I'm Scotty_McDonald there, but Instagram as well, Scotty McDonald. Please do follow me there, even though I slammed it. I do want to love Instagram. And my website, scottymcdonald.com, is my mailing list for the book, which should hopefully come out in the next couple of weeks. I'm excited about it. It's set in Brisbane, which is probably why I'm so excited.
Oh yeah, and it's like perfect. Like Brisbane's like very picturesque at the moment. The jacarandas are in full bloom. Although all the flowers would have fallen off with the rain this morning.
Oh yeah, how depressing!
I know. It's like they've finally come to full bloom, and we just had a rain of storms come through. It's terrible.
Yeah,
can't take those lovely photos anymore.
I think the last photo on my Instagram is of a jacaranda tree. I'll change that before this episode comes out.
And you've got a podcast yourself as well.
Yeah, the Brisbane is Weird podcast, which it's the same as what you say. It's so much work. I don't know, like I love a finished Brisbane is Weird podcast. I love talking to people about what they think of the stories. But man, it's so much work. Editing a podcast is so much more work than what I tell people it is. Like I tell people all the time, start a podcast, so easy. It's so easy to get you. But editing a podcast is so much work. But yes, after whinging about it, I will tell you that you can go find it on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, or brisbaneisweird.com.
Awesome. Well, I'm Sam. You can find me at Sam OB Journalist on Twitter and sam.the.journalist on TikTok and Instagram. I'm going to plug, I'm going to plug the Facebook page Shit Towns of Australia. They've just finished their regional rankings and they are about to do their national rankings of like theoretically the worst towns in Australia. People like just vote the ones, whatever they
What's
feel
Queensland?
like.
Where's Queensland at the moment? Like, where's
We've got two Cabooltures. So we've got Caboolture for shittest suburb and Caboolture for shittest town as well, which I don't know how Logan got beat out. Everyone's very sad that Logan isn't in the competition because we'd like to bag out Logan. But I'm kind of glad that Caboolture's gotten some representation because it's definitely well known for the dodgy things that happen there.
You'd be down the road from Caboolture right now.
So I'm very well versed and scared of Caboolture. If you've got to have a healthy amount of fear for the suburb, because otherwise it will hurt you. But yeah, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I will hopefully we'll get you back on another stage. It's been awesome to chat to you.
Yeah, you too, man. It was great to come on. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you for listening to Content and Capable. You can follow the podcast socials at Content, the letter N, Capable on Instagram and Twitter. You can send a super boring email to us through contentandcapablepod@gmail.com. The art was done by Opia. You can follow them on opia_art on Instagram. Opia is spelled OPIA. Feel free to message them about making art for your project. Our music was written, recorded, and edited by Nora Strauss-Riggs. You can find Nora at Kane_I, that's I as in the body part, on Instagram and Twitter. Feel free to message her about making music for your project or editing your podcast. I am proud to be a part of the Movie Night Crew Network, which features Of the Eldest Gods, a chapter-by-chapter Rick Riordan pod full of myths and legends, My Cabbages, an Avatar podcast that follows the true hero of Avatar The Last Airbender, the Cabbage Cart Guy, Fandom's Gone Wrong, a show that discusses all things fandoms, the Movie Night Crew, join some friends as they react to some terrible, some meh, and some really great movies, and the Restricted section, a chapter-by-chapter Harry Potter pod with lots of spoilers all the time.
What's up, potheads? It's me, your host, Christina. Welcome to the Restricted section. No, we're not in Hogwarts. It's like a metaphor. Do you get it? Like, we're raunchy, and we get drunk, and we make sex jokes, and we have an all spoilers all the time policy. So, you know, it's like the Restricted section. I've been told that explaining jokes makes them funnier. If you've ever wondered how the Marauders map actually works, if you've ever thought that maybe Snape sometimes wears jeans, if you've ever thought that Draco and Harry are for sure in love, I mean, they're for sure in love. If you've ever had a hard time deciding who you'd rather bang, Bill or Charlie, obviously Charlie, then this podcast is for you. You don't even have to do the reading, we'll do it for you. Catch the Restricted section every Wednesday wherever you get your podcasts and find us online at Restricted Section Pod.
Content and Capable is a podcast all about answering the question, how do you adult? Don't forget to rate and review it on your favourite podcatcher, and I will see you next Monday for another episode.
That movie sucked.
I kind of liked it.
Movie Night Crew Network.